Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Clear Vista Financial are not affiliated. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spend Life Well Show. I'm Certified Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice, and you're listening to our show, which applies biblical wisdom to your financial life. I'm joined today in the studio by my co-host and fellow financial professional, Jesse Hamilton.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the show.
Jesse, we're getting really close to Christmas. It's barely a week away. So I don't know about you, but, there's lots of things in preparation that I have to get done. But today on our program, we're going to discuss 5 signs that you may need a Christian financial advisor. We're also going to visit about teaching your kids about generosity and really the why behind why we're generous during the Christmas season. Plus, we're going to give you some updates on the latest inflation data and what it means for your holiday budget.
Yeah, Mark, I'm looking forward to that. Lots of great topics. Reminder that you listeners can call us anytime you want with your questions, 254-282-0495. You can also send us an email at our show email is radio@spendlifewell.com. We'll try to
You can
respond.
also text us, right?
You can text the same number. If you have a question, we'd love to answer it either on the show or within 24 hours. And if we really like your question and we don't get to it in time, we might even pull it out of our mailbag at an upcoming show.
Yeah, and there doesn't have to be something special about that question.
No.
It could be any question. We're going to answer them.
Yeah,
but
we really want to hear from you.
Some questions we do select to put on the show. This month, folks, we've been talking about generous living and giving, and we want to thank you for listening to this program and giving of your time each week. If you want to listen to a previous broadcast, those are all on our website. You can go to spendlifewell.com and click on the link for the Spend Life Well show, and you'll be linked to all previous episodes. So, Jesse, I was talking about Christmas and shopping and stuff, and I was listening to a program that I like to listen to today, and they were talking about ideas for your significant other or your wife. Okay. Jesse, I need some advice. What should I get for my spouse?
Well, I don't know. Have you been paying attention to anything over the past few months that she says, "Ooh, I really like that"? Or do you go shopping together ever?
No. Except
do you
for
know
the
what
kids.
Do you know what stores she likes?
No. Yeah, I do. I'm not that pathetic. Okay. But this conversation that these folks were having was really the longer you get married, the more you just your spouse would just send you a list of things she wants. And so do you and Emily do that now where she just sends you a list of things she wants so you don't have to think about it?
That's really funny because we were having this discussion on Saturday. Actually, we were out at the store and I was getting stressed out because her family does that. They do lists and they say, I want this and this. And instead of you buying me a gift, you might as well make it meaningful and something that I want. So it's going to be this. I want this. So it makes sense. But I didn't grow up that way. And so it kind of stressed me out. Everybody's asking for lists. And I'm like, what do you mean lists? And
see, our grandparents do that in our family. What do the kids want? What do you want? And I was like, I don't want anything. I'd rather give than receive in this situation. And so if I don't say something, then I'm going to get something that I don't want, right?
Right.
That's either going to remain in my closet or it's going to get returned.
Sure.
So some families, it sounds like, do hey, here's a list of things I've always been wanted. Some don't. And one thing we had to discover when we first started having kids was, 2 grandparents, we could not get them give them the same list of wish lists for the kid or the grandchild, right? Because one of them would invariably go out and buy everything on the list. And so we've had to divvy up the list. They don't know this, but we've had to divvy up the list. And even then, sometimes they end up getting things on the other grandparents' list that they didn't even know about. They just happened to buy it. So what as you are married for a while, you come to the perspective is like, if I want him to get what I want, I might as well give him a list of things that I'm interested in. So my wife has done that this year. She's given me a list of few things, but I've come up with something that I think will really surprise her and I think she'll really love. But I cannot tell it on the air because
Is
it's
it
nice.
related to the same things on the list, or is it totally different?
No, completely different. Something she's always
Ah.
wanted to do for us to do as a couple, and so I'm
Oh, so
gonna.
it's an experience
It's
gift.
an experience gift. Yes, yes, yes. So I don't want to give it away, but
Okay.
um, um, I think I've got her gift. I'll get her something off the list too, right?
That's
Um,
probably
you know,
good.
we were talking this morning about appliances. Do you get your significant other appliance for Christmas, right? And I know our listeners right there either they've just had an accident because they rear into someone, or they've had to pull over to the side. No, you don't get an appliance for your significant other for the holidays unless they've specifically asked for it.
All I
So,
want for Christmas is a refrigerator.
right. Well, last year I thought my wife was testing me, Jesse. I thought she was testing because she said she wanted a blender, right?
Okay.
And if you've ever any of you our listeners have watched the Father of the Bride, the newer 1990s version, not the
Mhm.
1956 version,
Yeah.
1960 version, but Father of the Bride, one of the gifts that the guy gives her as a wedding present is a blender. That's dangerous, right? You don't want to give your fiance a blender, right? That especially if she doesn't ask for it. But last Christmas, my wife asked for a blender, so I got it. It's her favorite gift. She uses it every day, not to blend things for me or anything like that, but for her. And she
She makes
loves.
a smoothie.
She makes smoothies every day. So for her, that was an awesome gift, and I wouldn't have known because I didn't know she liked to blend. So, what are you doing, folks? Text us at 254-282-0495. What are you doing? How does your family uh, shop for Christmas? Shop for loved ones? Do you ask for a list? Do you give them a list? What do you think works for you and your family? 254-282-0495. You can just text us. And we like to know because, Jesse, I don't know what you're doing, but you better ask, right?
Right.
Well, hey, I love to talk about Christmas. It's a great time of year. Just barely a week left until the big celebration. Let's not forget why we celebrate Christmas, the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Right.
So Jesse, this week, some big data came out about inflation.
Yes. So the CPI report came out and it showed that inflation, the prices rose at the slowest pace since a year ago. So that's a 12-month slowest pace in 12 months. And that's not necessarily the data we were expecting, but there's a lot of reasons behind that, right?
It was slightly less than we expected. We had
Yeah.
expected. Now, the media will focus, Jesse, on the year-over-year change,
Yeah.
which I think at this point is kind of irrelevant because we've had high inflation for some time now. And if you focus on that, you might be led to a false sense of security saying, oh, inflation's falling.
Hmm.
And it's really not falling. It's only fallen on a year-over-year basis,
Right.
which when we go back to June, and fast forward to June, it's going to look like inflation's not really that hot. But if we're still having for the last 3 months prior to November, the monthly month-over-month increase in inflation was like 0.4%.
Hmm.
This month it was 0.1, and it was expected to be about 0.3. Well, the markets reacted. They're all jovial about that because surely that means that the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates tomorrow, right? And that's not the case. So the thing, Jesse, I think that is causing problems is we're starting to see the last bastions of inflation increase, and that's in the services sector. You're
Hmm.
seeing wages increase, and that's causing a lot of pressure on prices to increase in the service sector. So that's got to plateau, and it
Yeah.
hasn't yet.
Well, the
But
classic picture with all these articles, if you pull up a major news source, is a picture of probably a grocery store.
yep,
And so, I don't know, listeners, what you're thinking, but it feels like people have maybe gotten a little bit more used to the inflation. It's still very high, but it's not shocking as much to walk into the store and your grocery bill is 20-30% more or whatever it is. And so all I'm saying is it's still very high, but maybe people are not noticing as much, possibly.
No, I think people are, because I think there's still a lot of information out there that shows that people are still having to make choices.
Yeah.
Think about all the people that we heard from that decided not to do a traditional Thanksgiving dinner with a big turkey and
Mm,
things like that.
yeah.
They chose not to do that. Now, what we're seeing those increases, and we're seeing it in our own industry, is we're seeing the price trends for those services continue to rise. And that still is impacting. We think that those inflationary pressures are still going to be impacting the broader economy
Yeah.
than just say the price of an automobile going up or
Right.
things of that nature. The labor market is really kind of the last stand where there's strength that's leading to higher wage growth, and that could continue to pressure inflation.
Okay.
What the Federal Reserve is looking at is they're really looking to see if their interest rate hikes are having a broader impact on the economy, and they haven't seen that yet. So, we're likely to see another rate increase from the Federal Reserve here soon. But, the good news is that, inflation didn't rise as fast as was expected.
Right.
Still up, but it didn't rise as fast as expected.
So we haven't mentioned the core CPI because maybe our more astute listeners would say, "Oh yeah, but gas prices are way down, so that's going to manipulate the data." The core CPI excludes energy and food prices.
And what was that up?
It rose 6% in November from a year ago. So the year over year is 6%.
Still at 6% is far cry from the 2% target
Right.
that we're
And
seeing there.
is the Fed looking at the core CPI as well?
Oh yeah, they're mainly looking at that because they know the housing and energy is a volatile
Yeah.
type metric, and so they're looking at all those things. We've
Okay.
seen home sales starting to fall. Mortgage rates have actually eased up a little bit in the last few weeks,
Yeah.
but still, I think the rates of sales will continue to fall just a little bit.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you have a question about the housing market or about rates, we would love to hear that. We're not financing experts, but we are knowledgeable about the interest rate environment. So we'd love to answer that for you.
Yeah, I mean the interest rate on a mortgage is going to affect the affordability of that mortgage, and so interest rates have a tremendous impact on our listeners' ability to buy a new car, to
Hmm.
buy a new house.
Right.
So anyway, I think that some manufacturers are still feeling the impacts of the supply challenges,
Oh yeah.
but they seem to be kind of falling off, so that we're not having supply chain issues like we did post pandemic at the end of the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I haven't
and
seen many photos like we were earlier this year, end of last year, of Los Angeles ports with just boats lined up out the entire ocean. I haven't seen pictures like that. I'm sure
yeah,
that there's still a backup,
but
but
I'm curious. I'm curious to hear from our listeners. What are they doing? How are their habits been changing because of inflation? This inflation, we think, is here to stay. So we're more than likely going into 2023 with a sense of stagflation, which is higher than normal inflation and slow economic growth.
mhm.
Let's get some feedback from our listening audience. 254-282-0495. Send us a text. I'm reading here an article of a consumer that was, she started buying clothes for her daughter at swap stores instead of normal stores. She changed her plans to buy a car, and instead she lives in the city. She purchased an electric bike
Mhm.
in a Black Friday sale,
That's great
and
if you can do it.
yeah, and it'd be kind of hard for me to commute
Yeah.
from my house to the office on one charge on an electric bike. And she's planning to buy a smaller Christmas tree after a friend told her they were selling for more than $100 in Brooklyn. This is where she was from.
Yeah.
So anyway, lots of changes, and that's impacting everybody, and we're cognizant of that. We know that inflation is having an impact on everyone. So we love to hear from you about how that's having an impact on your financial situation, because we think it's affecting across the board in some capacity. People are making choices for their budget, and what do they do there?
Yeah.
So Jesse, we're going to take a break here in just a minute, but I wanted to talk about a year-end surprise. When we get back, we're going to talk about some unexpected tax bills for your investments that you may get come 2023 for the tax year 2022. This is, a lot of people don't realize this because we have not had a situation like this where fund managers have had to sell positions in their portfolio generating capital gains. We'll
Right.
get into that more in just a moment. When we come back, folks, you've been listening to the Spend Life Well Show. I'm Certified Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice. If you want to interact with us, send us a text at 254-282-0495. We'll be happy to take that question, or you can send us an email. Jesse, what's that email?
It's radio@spendlifewell.com.
Radio at Spend Life Well. Folks, you've been listening to Spend Life Well Show. We'll be right back.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Spend Life Well Show. I'm Jesse Hamilton, and I'm joined, as always, by Mark Trice.
Hey, guys.
We've been having a conversation about inflation and consumer price index increases and everything, but now we're moving on to a different topic that might come as a surprise to you. If you're holding investments that are not tied into some sort of retirement account or tax deferral, it's an interesting year, isn't it, Mark?
It really has been, and I'm thinking this is more like a Gomer Pyle surprise. So a lot of people are thinking, well, Jesse, I've lost money in my investments this year. Markets are down. We'll give a little market snapshot in just a moment. Markets are down. Surely I wouldn't have to owe taxes on that. Well, surprise, said Gomer Pyle. If you own or you're holding mutual funds, even ETFs, if you're holding mutual funds in taxable accounts, or not the IRAs and 401ks, your individual tax bill may be a big surprise. Now, there are about 300, according to some research done by this article from the Wall Street Journal, is about 350 funds will pay out more than 10% of their net asset value this year. And about 60 of those will pay more than 20% out. These are considered distributions or capital gains. And so there's some big firm names that you may not have heard of. Jesse, read off a few there. Some of the 20%.
Yeah, here's a couple of the 20%ers. Morgan Stanley, Neuberger Berman, PIMCO, JP Morgan. These are some big names in the industry.
Yep. And so, and this article in the Wall Street Journal talked about one of the largest single payouts is by Delaware Sustainable Equity Income Fund, which changed its strategy in 2022. It's estimated it'll pay out about 88% of its net asset value to the remaining fund holders this year.
That could be really expensive to somebody who's holding a large piece of that.
Surprise tax bill. Now, these are not dividends. They're not paying out dividends either. These are capital gains that they're being kicked out. These will be taxable to those folks that have individual taxable accounts.
But even though the net asset value of most of these funds is down significantly, they're going to owe tax bills on them?
Absolutely, because when fund managers turn over individual companies in that mutual fund, that can create a capital gain event. So, Jesse, let's talk a little bit about what's behind those large payouts, right?
Sure.
So mutual fund managers can sell holdings, right, that have declined in value, and save up those capital losses to offset future capital gains on holdings that have risen in value.
Mm-hmm.
However, each year they must send current investors almost all net capital gains that are not offset by losses. So you've got years, Jesse, now of strong markets.
Lots of bull markets.
Well over a decade of a bull market.
Yeah.
So many managers had very few losses this year to offset gains on the sales of those big winners. And so they're turning over the funds in the companies in their funds. So when the fund holders sold as markets tumbled, the managers often had to sell the winners to meet those redemption needs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the capital gains on those sales were then spread among the remaining fund holders.
Right.
So if you're owning that, to be sure, those payouts can be in cash. So
But what if
fund
they're
holders don't have to come up with the money for taxes unless they reinvest the payouts
which
back into the fund.
that's a pretty common thing to do. So maybe
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you're not sure, you might want to pull up your statement and call your advisor or your whoever is involved with that account and ask them, am I being paid out in cash or am I reinvesting? Because you
Right.
can always
And the
pull
most
the
common
cash.
thing is reinvest back into the individual mutual fund. That's the most common thing
Yeah.
that we see. So if you're paid out in cash, you don't have to come up with the money. But if you reinvest those payouts back into the fund, you're going to have to come up with some tax money potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that doesn't seem really fair, but that's the way that folks that have mutual funds and taxable accounts with large payouts they're going to get hit. It's an odd outcome, right? Because investors have no control over it. And it's like in this market, with the market being down so much, it's like you're getting hit when you're down.
Yeah.
So, there is a little bit of an upside here. On the other hand, this year's tax downside came after a long upside. So that means that sometimes those distributions are going to be they're going to be taxed at long-term capital gains rates. So anyway, there's some things you need to look at, before year end. Most of the mutual funds out there today have already released their expectations for payouts. Okay, they in fact we saw several of them do it today, Jesse.
Yeah, we did.
Several of those funds did their payouts today, so those are out there. They don't. A lot of the funds don't send out those notifications, but they're often on their fund website, or you can call investor relations for that particular mutual fund. Because we're financial advisors, we often get notifications from the fund managers because we're obviously potentially buying and selling those funds. You want to look to find out whether those cap gain payouts are short term or long term. You want to check and see what your cost basis is in the fund, which is often the purchase price plus any reinvestments. And so that's how you can measure your capital gains and see that. There's options though that you have, right, Jesse?
Oh yeah. There's several different options.
What's a good move for investors who want out of a fund in which they'll have net losses is you can sell before the payout date. Now, by the time you're hearing our words talk about this, most of the funds, not all, but most of the funds have already had their payouts.
Yeah.
And so you can potentially do that. Now, you have to be careful because you don't want to generate a wash sale rule, right?
Oh yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, because if you're thinking, well, I'm just going to cash out and then I'll buy back in once they do the distribution. You have to be careful because if there's a loss on that, then you buy it back, then you're basically violating what we call the wash sale rule.
Yeah.
Something else you could do, Jesse? What about charitable giving?
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. If you want to potentially avoid a little bit of taxes, you can always reduce that by gifting it. There's lots of different ways to do that.
Yeah, charitable giving to a nonprofit of that appreciated security, like a mutual fund. You just want to do that before the payout to avoid the tax.
Yeah.
So you can also, some people like to sell their losers to offset some of those long-term capital gain payouts, but you have to be careful about that because it's a complex dance, and you want to make sure that you're talking to a professional advisor, and more than likely talk to your tax advisor about the best way to do that. You don't want to, sell the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Right. It's kind of the same thing the mutual fund companies are doing within the fund, but you're doing it on a personal level.
That's right. So, mutual funds are really have had this problem for some time. Some people look to exchange traded funds and index funds that rarely have big, large payouts, except we've seen a few this year, Jesse, that have big payouts.
Yeah, we have.
So, that's going to be something to consider. So, surprise, surprise, folks. I don't want you to be surprised. Know it's coming. Take a look at your account portfolio to see what you own. Do you own mutual funds? What mutual funds do you own? Is it part of a larger fund family? Go to their website, find out if they're doing those types of payouts so you can be prepared. What's not fun is to be doing your tax return around April 15th or so and discovering that you've got to come up with a lot of extra money this year, even though your investments lost value. So just be careful. Be careful there. So Jesse, we talked on the last program about the negativity in the markets and the negativity on social media. And so many people are getting their financial advice from social media.
Yeah.
And that's just,
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, we covered this at the end of last week's program, but yeah, there's extremely powerful advertisements that are grabbing your attention, and they do a really good job at that. They know what you want, they know what you want to hear, but we've seen a couple of them actually are very close to financial advice, and people are doing what they say.
I mean, you can't pull up your Facebook or your Instagram and not see some type of commercial for gold or some other commodity, or buy an annuity to avoid the financial, roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to look at where these people are coming from. The bait that hooks you in, okay? The bait that reels you in is something negative. We are, as consumers, are more likely to go read more, click on a link if it's something negative.
Right.
And the worst of these, because I'm always curious about this, Jesse. The worst of these are ones where you're going to lose your entire portfolio if you don't watch this video. And the video goes on for 30, 45 minutes, and it's all just to get you to subscribe to a newsletter.
Right.
And I wonder if anybody ever listens that long.
I doubt it. People have very short attention spans these days. The actual funds, whether it's a mutual fund company or something, they're heavily regulated. So you probably won't see that kind of ad for an actual fund. Like you were saying, it's a lot of subscription-based services and people offering advice on a non-professional level.
Right. But we're listening to it. We're paying attention to all these negative ads out there, and we're giving in to our darker emotions.
Mm.
So
the gloom and doom pays. That's what we were saying last week.
Yeah. And so folks, be careful about that, because around this time, you're going to be getting lots of news and stuff like that, especially when it comes to predicting the future. And we'll talk about this on a future show, but no one knows the future. Only God does. And, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And so, you can avoid becoming one of those negativity, listening to the negativity. All right. And what's Proverbs 15:22? We talked about this last time. Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. Folks, you need a good financial advisor. This is the time of year, as we're going into the new year, that people start thinking about their finances. Maybe they're, getting all the credit card bills from all the Christmas shopping that they did and regretted later on. Maybe it's like, I have a financial resolution I want to improve. But folks, you need to find a trusted advisor. We always recommend, a certified Kingdom advisor. And there are many in Central Texas. If you just go to kingdomadvisors.com or visit moneywise.org, those types of things, you can find a certified Kingdom advisor. This is someone that's been trained in biblical wisdom to apply to your personal financial situation.
Mm-hmm.
So you need someone to help you navigate all these decisions, because it is. We get calls all the time. Hey, should I be locking in my CD rates because interest rates are going to fall? And I go, where'd you hear that? Facebook. All sorts of different things. I think I need to go invest in this oil company. Where'd you hear about that? Facebook. People are getting advice from the wrong places.
Yeah. Facebook and the headlines, if it's on the front page of a journal, it's probably trying to get your attention, and it's not trying to offer you quality investment advice.
There was I've shared this before, Jesse, but we have years and years ago, many moons ago, I was getting some training from my market technician training person, and one of the things we used to joke about it was, if it's on the cover of a magazine, don't buy it, because it's almost finished. And one of those, a long time ago, I can't even tell you the name of the company, but it involves tasty treats that are round with holes in them. And it was on the cover of Money magazine. Wow. And it was not but 6 months, and that company was bankrupt. So just because it's on the cover of Financial Magazine does not mean that it means anything at all. They just got a great PR person and marketing person that got them on the cover of.
Yeah.
It may have been like a last-ditch financial effort to save the company. I don't know. But, why is it important to have a good, godly advisor? Why do you think that is? Well, having a godly advisor means you've got someone that's trained in biblical finance. You get accountability from a third party. You've got security and familiarity for a surviving spouse. I know if you're in your 20s, you're thinking, well, I'll never die. But as you age, you think, oh, that's a possibility, right? And the really thing is that objectivity from a third party to bring wisdom into those situations. Because as couples, we don't always agree on everything, right? I mean,
Right.
we have different backgrounds, like you were saying about Emily and stuff, and
Yeah.
and her bringing and the Christmas list and things. So that's important to try to remember, that we get a trusted advisor that we can work with, that keep us accountable, and we have familiarity and security for our family. You can go to kingdomadvisors.org or kingdomadvisors.com, excuse me, and moneywise.org. I got too many orgs and coms. And find a certified Kingdom advisor in your area. Folks, we're going to take a short break here. You've been listening to the Spend Life Well show with Mark Trice and Jesse Hamilton. Stay tuned. We're going to get into some important things about your generosity in the Christmas time frame. Listen, we'll be right back.
All right, well, welcome back to the Spend Life Well show. I'm Jesse Hamilton, and I'm joined by Mark Trice. And we've been having a conversation about if you could use a Christian financial advisor. We mentioned the Kingdom Advisors as a great resource if you want to go to their website, kingdomadvisors.com. But we have a couple different reasons here, actually 5 signs that you might need a Christian financial counselor. Mark, the first one is that your finances feel out of control. So
yeah. And Art Rayner published this article on moneywise.org if you want to read it again. But having, if you feel your finances that are control, what are some things, Jesse, that maybe we don't have control over our finances?
Well, obviously your spending. By the time you go throughout your week and swipe your card here, swipe your card there, and then you look at your statement and you're like, wait, where did all the money go? Or maybe you're spending it on credit and you look at your statement and you don't have the funds available to pay it. That can feel like a major loss of control.
Yep. I mean, every month you're just flying by the seat of your pants. There's no direction, no organization, anything.
Yeah, it causes a lot of stress.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing, Jesse, are your finances causing you stress?
Yeah. It could be, like I said, it could be the spending side of things. Maybe you're getting to the point where you have to make some decisions about investments, or you got a job that has a retirement plan and you don't understand it. Lack of understanding can really add to stress.
Oh yeah. So What does Scripture say about worry and stress?
That it shouldn't be a part of our lives
That's
because
right.
God's
So
going to take care of our needs.
if we are struggling and our finances are stressing you out, that's a good sign you need to have work with a Christian financial advisor, right? Christian financial counselor, um, because they're trained in what the Bible has to say about finances, and they also know that the Scripture that talks about how we don't need to worry about these things. So they can help you, and they understand the value of that, and they can help you design a financial plan or a spending plan to help you take control of what it is that you're spending. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the second one, Jesse?
Well, it's that you don't know what step to take next. And at my church, we've been doing a little bit of a series where our pastor's been teaching on this idea of next step faith. So it's faith that involves what am I going to do now and in the very soon future, the choices I'm going to make. And that just reminds me of that. If you have no idea what your next step is, then maybe you should seek some wise counsel, like Proverbs says.
Yeah. A certified kingdom advisor can certainly look at your current financial situation and suggest some wise next steps.
Yeah.
Here's the third point that you might need a Christian financial advisor or counselor is you and your spouse or significant other are regularly arguing about money.
This is a challenging one.
Now that we all know that there's statistics out there that show that over half of all divorces are due in part to some disagreements over finances.
hmm
And God designed married couples to operate as one, even in finances. And this is one of the areas that, if you're working with a Christian financial advisor, they're going to hone in on. And this is how the conversation goes sometimes. You've got his budget, her budget, and our budget, right? It's
hmm
his money, her money, and our money. And they're not coming together. And the most obvious symptom is like, well, he pays for the electric bill, she pays for the grocery bill. He pays the mortgage or the rent, she pays for the car payment. And you're not coming together. You're agreeing, and you're basically having a roommate of which you decided to split expenses.
Yeah.
And a few weeks ago, Jesse, we talked about the research that was out there about how couples that are together and married couples that are together on their finances actually create more wealth
Right.
than couples that don't.
Yeah, you can actually go find that article, but I believe it said that uh, couples who combine their finances are 4 times as wealthy.
4 times. 4 times. If you're regularly arguing with your spouse about money, you need someone to be a mediator, right?
Yeah.
Because God designed couples to operate as one, right?
Yeah.
And
And
and and if you want this, right? But if you're struggling to get on the same financial page with your spouse, you need some help.
yeah.
And so a certified kingdom advisor can help you through that process to get you talking to, Jesse and I joke sometimes when we're talking to families and couples and things like that. A lot of times we're a therapist.
Yeah.
We're a therapist because we're helping, people have their own experiences with money. Maybe they went through a bad relationship where the guy was just stealing money and going to strip clubs or buying all sorts of big ticket items without telling their spouse.
Yeah.
But what we find is that money oftentimes is a point of division, that couples will argue over that or struggle because he wants that, she wants this. And you need someone to help you get on the page because you really, whether you realize it or not, there's a lot of common ground amongst couples. You just got to get together and communicate those things. Sometimes we don't know how to talk about money because money is such a point of division and contention within couples. It can cause a lot of struggling in the relationship.
Yes.
And so a Christian financial advisor can help guide you on those things and get you on the same financial page.
Yeah.
What's the
Well,
fourth key characteristic about that you might need to talk to a Christian financial advisor?
Yeah. Our fourth sign is kind of what I was talking about earlier, but it's that you don't know what you don't know. So maybe you acknowledge that you know very little about money, and this has caused you to make some regretful decisions, or maybe you have to make a decision like that retirement plan, or you lost a job and you need to make a big decision and you just feel lost. You don't know what you don't know.
I think that sometimes we talk and it's so neat to be a part of a community of Christian financial advisors. I regularly attend the Kingdom Advisors annual conference, which
Hmm.
Jesse, you're going to get to go to this year,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
and it's really neat because we none of us see each other as competitors.
Mm,
There'll be 2,000 people there, financial advisors, and none of us talk about being competitors. And the reason is that we're all there because we love the Lord. We believe that His Word is there to guide us through these
hmm.
situations, and it has so much instruction, over 2,000 verses dealing with money and possessions, that we all believe the same thing. It's like we're all an army, and our objective is to help as many people as possible with their finances. But I got to tell you, my biggest competitor, Jesse, our biggest competitor
Yeah.
is the person that sits behind you at church.
Mm,
The person that sits behind you at church. And if you're listening to this, you're thinking, what's he talking about? It's the person behind you that gives you advice. And if they go to church with you and you think, well, they're a believer, so they must know what they're talking about. There are all sorts of predators in the church. Unfortunately, folks, there can be people that are there in attending church just to sit behind you and give you advice and also get you to buy one of their products.
hmm.
I know this is kind of a scary topic because we probably have all worked with a quote financial advisor that attends your church.
Yeah.
And there's immediately a trust barrier that is broken because, if you're there, you obviously are a Christian, right? And therefore, you're looking out for the best interest. But make sure that they've taken the time to really learn and digest and discern what it is that the God is saying through His Word in the Holy Bible about wisdom around finances. Because we were just talking about somebody the other day, Jesse. How they were making special exceptions for people that attend their church.
Yeah,
That should
we've
be a
heard
red
that.
flag.
Yeah, we've heard of different people doing that, and I guess what we're trying to say is we encourage you to step back and take some thoughts about, why is this person talking to me? Why are they being so nice to me? And what is their background that allows them to have the knowledge that I would like to know?
Yeah, so encourage you to do that. Jesse, the fifth and final reason that you may need to talk to a Christian financial advisor is what?
Is that you need accountability.
We
So
all need accountability.
there's
Um,
so many aspects of life that require accountability. You know, all kinds of reasons, personal reasons, spiritual reasons, and of course, financial reasons. So you might have an accountability partner for other things in your life, but a Christian financial counselor can provide that, even down to things like a credit card balance.
yeah. I mean, Jesse and I are financial advisors, but we have financial advisors
Hmm.
that are not us. And we probably know the answers to most things. But if I'm doing it on my own, then I don't have someone that I'm accountable to, and I think that's real important. So 5 reasons you might need a Christian financial advisor. Art Rayner on moneywise.org if you want to read that a little further. But Jesse, let's take a couple minutes and jump into the market update.
Yeah, so let's quickly cover our indexes in the market. The first one that we cover is the S&P 500, 500 largest cap companies in America. Year to date, minus 16.2%. And then the next one that we're going to cover is the NASDAQ Composite Index. That's minus 28.7%. That index is consisting of more tech type companies, growth oriented companies, right?
Yep.
And then let's also cover small caps. If you pull up your statement and you see something that's either says small cap or Russell 2000, that's the index that we follow. It is minus 18.7% year to date. That might
All
be
right.
a small portion of your portfolio. And
More than
then,
likely it is.
yeah, more than likely it is. The big kicker that we talk about every week, though, that's different this year is the long-term bond index, which is down minus 28.02%.
Wow. So a lot of people are being impacted by the bond portfolio. And, folks, you need to be careful about that. Jesse, in our remaining moments here, I wanted to visit about, how do you communicate generosity to your kids during the holiday season? And
Okay.
Sound Mind Investing is a resource that I read a lot, and they were talking about this. We want to show our kids, and as we're involved in generosity. I know one of the things right now, you want to give to the church. Well, you just basically Venmo or you text to a number of church, and your kids don't see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to show generosity during the Christmas season. And because in 1 John 4:19, the Bible says we love God because he loved us first, a lot of that can be said the same for generosity. One reason we need to give, and we said this many times, is because God gave first to us. He gave his son.
Yep. In John
Uh,
3:16, it's a verse that we talk about all the time on this
yeah.
show. And
And everybody
I know
knows that.
everybody knows the verse. I mean, it's everybody's favorite verse. You could probably say it right now, but it's just so important. And we look over the fact that God gave his only son.
Yeah. So we encourage you as you're talking, teaching your kids about generosity, you want to put a face on that generosity, right? So it has to be personal and practical, not theoretical. So they have to understand just how deeply Jesus cares about the poor.
Mm-hmm.
When we help the poor, as if we have helped the Lord himself. Proverbs 19:17, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done. So the more real we see that, if we're giving and you're giving to someone standing on the corner asking for money, that means we need to show kids doing that. Sometimes we do that by giving them a package of goods and food and toiletries and things like that, not just
Yeah.
money. But you need to see that, get them involved in that. There's some other things that you can do, and we do actually each of these. But you can support a child through a ministry such as Compassion International. That's a great one. We sponsor a child there, and then also I was reading about Operation Christmas Child, and that's with Samaritan's Purse. This is where my 9-year-old loves doing this because she gets to fill that shoebox with small toys, school supplies, hygiene items, stuff like that. And those boxes are delivered around the world, and whether it be in areas where children are impacted by poverty, war, or natural disasters, and they're also spreading the good news of Jesus.
So you're saying that this is a great opportunity to actually get your children involved. Ask them
Absolutely.
to fill the box, to write the note, to connect with them.
And another one's Angel Tree. I know our church in Austin did this for years and still does. It's basically, this is through a prison fellowship program, and that's basically you're buying gifts for families, for kids that have a parent in prison. Obviously, because they can't, obviously go down to the Walmart and buy some Christmas presents and stuff. So it's one of those things where you can help make that child's Christmas a good one and more enjoyable, and you can get your children involved because who doesn't want to go buy a toy for another child? Every kid loves doing that.
Yeah.
And then one here that we supported recently, and that's Gospel for Asia and digging water wells and things. That's such a practical thing, and we got our kids involved in that. No, they didn't dig a well, but I told the story, let them watch the videos of why we were giving to Gospel for Asia. So, Hey Jesse, we're coming up on the end of the broadcast. I know this is the going into the 4th week of Advent tomorrow. We wish you all a blessed holiday season, and God willing, we will be back next week. You've been listening to the Spend Life Well show. Have a great day.